Welcome everyone, my name is Luca and this is my good friend Marco.
Hey, welcome! You are about to form a new random access memory.
And today's memory is about storage. So what's your take on it?
Well, storage, it's a sort of technical term because it really talks about information storage in a computer, or at least this is my understanding of it. But if we stretch the term a little bit more and we start talking about memory, let's say that my initial thought in this discussion is that memory, or storage for the matter, is actually a property of the universe in which we live. So let's make a thought experiment, okay? Let's imagine that there is a metal bar, a metal rod on the moon, on the surface of the moon, you know? So it's like a place where nothing happens, let's say in geological time scale. And you just go there, like let's suppose that you have the technology that you can go on the moon, and you just bend the rod, okay? This metal rod, you bend it, so it becomes V-shaped or U-shaped, like according like how you bend it. Then you deploy a robot, like a machine, that perfectly make it straight again. So like the rod, it's completely as before. So it's identical to how you found it.
Is it?
It is not, and this is the point, you know, because somehow the fact that you bend it and you restraight it, it can look identical from afar, from the distance. But if you zoom in with a microscope, so if you have a sufficiently strong analysis technique, you will be able to tell this rod was bent and then restraightened. Why? Because there is entropy. So it's like the molecules inside the rod will not be perfectly aligned as before. They will be a little bit misshapen.
I would be in layman terms is if you have a line or if you have an object and you make the shape change and then you set it back to the original one, the properties that were at the start are not the same as the one that you get back. As in, it's going to be the same shape, but maybe the resistance to fraction or other properties are different. In another way, you can be even more simpler. Let's say you have a glass of water and the glass falls on the floor. It breaks, and then you put it together. It's going to have the same shape as before, but it's not going to be the same. And if you
Yeah,
want to extend the
exactly.
metaphor, it also works with humankind and relationships. So yes, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean it's the same reason why you cannot unscramble an egg. You know, once you scrambled it, it's gone. You cannot go back because it's we live in a universe where the entropy is always growing. Is always everything you do. I mean, there are a
Every
few.
breath you take.
Every breath you take, you're closer to your own demise. Let's say, no, no. Sorry,
No,
let's
that's
not take such a dark spin on the
no,
issue.
that was a funny reference to a song. No, that was the. Remember when we were talking about time and human invented time and there is only changing and whatever. I guess another
Yeah,
way to look at it is there is always changing and there is always increasing entropy.
exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
But the point is that sometimes we use it for our own advantage. So I mean, the fact that when you do something, you leave a mark. So if you do something with a specific way of doing. So if you do it in a codified way, if you put a code, then you have storage, you have memory, basically. So in this sense, I would give a random definition, let's say today definition of memory. What is memory? I would argue that memory is entropy plus language. So if you put
So,
a language,
by your definition, let's think about the old mankind. Let's say when we were still in caves,
yeah,
and you were hunting. You were a hunter, and you used to capture animals to eat and whatever. To keep track of the animal that you eat, you would have somehow on the wall of the cave a way to signal that today I captured amount of animals, and you sign it somehow. So I would argue that this is memory as well, if you think about it. Not talking about picture, the picture in the caves where you have animals and whatever. Just a way to signal that as opposed to yesterday, you have more animals and to keep track of what you're doing. Maybe it's something a little more on the evolution scale, but at the end of the day,
Well,
memory.
I don't know. I mean, I agree that it's the first attempt to enhance our memory, our storage, because like our brain is exactly that. Like we have memories from our past. Like we can remember when we were kids and we did such and such play, and we can remember the best sandwich we had in our
up
life.
Up to a point. Think about it. Have you ever read Sherlock Holmes, the book? One of those books.
No, I'm not a fan of Sherlock Holmes.
Okay, fair enough. I'm gonna just say in one of those books, I think it was the Room in Red, the first one, when Watson meets for the first time Sherlock Holmes, and he was analyzing how Sherlock Holmes was and whatever, and he was surprised that Sherlock Holmes didn't know that Earth was not at the center of the universe, because at the time in the 16 whatever, it was a different mindset at the time, right? Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I remember that Sherlock Holmes was very clever.
No, he was surprised about those basic facts. He was very smart, but he didn't know those facts. So when he asked why he didn't know, the first answer was, now I know, and I'll do my best to forget it. And the reason why he said it was, for Sherlock Holmes and for Conan Doyle, the mind is a set of boxes, is a finite set of boxes. So if you put into a box something to remember, you push a box away with something that you should remember as well. So for him, you need to remember just the things that you need, and you fill the box with what you need, because otherwise you forget things or boxes that you need. So, our memory is finite. It's made this way.
I wish I was like him, because actually in my brain, I dedicate an insane amount of space for quotes from Monty Python or quotes from the Family Guy or whatnot. I have all this garbage that it's taking up space in my mind.
For me as well. What I'm saying is, you may remember something from your childhood, but you don't remember everything, because otherwise it would be a problem. Okay, think about it this way. Let's assume that you can remember everything that you felt, everything that you ever did, everyone that you ever meet in your life, and you're like 50.
Yeah, I don't know how it feels
to live with 50 years of memory exactly planted in your head. It would be impossible.
Well, I think you might not have. It also depends on your brains, because I was doing some research and I figured out that it's something really strange, actually. Memory does not come in volume. Actually come in linear length or in area. It's really strange. So, if you can make a aerial memory, let's say an area, you can increase the efficiency by making this area very, 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 very thin. This is the strategy, But there is a theoretical limit. I'm going to explain. Let's say you usually have either area or linear length. So let's suppose that you put some data on a disk. Of course, the measure that is important is the area of the disk. So you have a larger disk, you have a larger memory. And of course, you have a areal density. So if you have a very high areal density, it means that in a small disk, you can put a lot of memory. And right now, apparently, what is the most dense storage form that mankind know is the DNA. The DNA is able to store 215 petabytes per gram, which is like as good as we can get, let's say, as a technology, or like both in nature um, and in our technology, because we did in 2012, I guess, tried to store data on DNA. And yeah, it's basically a linear, it's like a tape. You have these bases, so you have a linear you have a linear memory storage. But because the line is very thin, actually it's microscopic, it's just a couple of molecules thick, then the efficiency is very high. And there are some chaps who even calculated the theoretical limit, and they figure out that the very maximum limit that you could ever hope to obtain is 253 petabytes per gram. Above that, you cannot go. So
Considering
it's like
that an average human being is around 40 kilos, if we are very conservative, I would say that I see a very bad future of data centers made of humans, like in the Matrix, that asleep with life support just for storage.
Yeah, no, I think it would be really wasteful, and like you should store only DNA. Like we have a lot of
Yeah, you
proteins,
have
a
blood
lot
as
of
well.
lipids.
You have blood, you have pee, and then
Yeah,
you
this
have
stuff
you have
doesn't contain
other stuff.
doesn't
But
contain any memory.
by the way,
But
it depends. Depends on the definition.
yeah.
By the
Let's
way,
say that the information density in your P is quite low. Let's
yeah,
say
that's true. It's not
you,
very
you,
accurate.
can, you can ascertain something, but not too much, not as much as your DNA, let's say.
By the way, have you ever thought about how memory is jogged? As in, how memory is triggered? I was reading an article some time ago, and the best way to trigger memory in 90% of cases is by smell. You connect easily with a concept when you have smelt it, or you have a connection with the smell of the thing before. Such as, I don't know, you smell something and you remember your grandma when you're like 2 years old that did something, whatever. Smell is much, much better than sight for memory.
Yeah, I think it's somehow closer to the main part of the brain where you store memories. I mean, I remember I saw the explanation for that, but I don't remember exactly why. Also because I don't understand exactly how it works, the memory in the
We have
brain.
more reception for smell than for sight, I guess. Maybe that's the reason. We have more, we surface for smell than for sight, I think. That potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that there is an evolutionary advantage for that, or it could be just that it's a design, unwanted design that
Another
came like that.
example. You smell fire before you see it. So if you are a caveman and you smell fire, you run faster than when you see it, because when you see it, you're already too close. That's my other explanation.
Talking about smell, I don't know why, but you know what is the thing that we are best at smelling as a human?
Bullshit.
No, unfortunately, no. We are very bad at that.
No, I don't know.
No, I mean, maybe the real bullshit. I mean, the actual dung of a bull, it could be smelled. But the bullshit in figurative, in metaphoric term, unfortunately, we are wired to believe it, it seems, actually. No, but no, we are very good at smelling rain. Like the petrosol, which is the chemical that is released when there is rain.
Yeah.
We are as good as smelling that we are actually, like, our capacity to smell that substance, it's stronger than the capacity of the dog of smelling the vast majority of odor, and it's even higher of the capacity of the shark to smell blood. So we are absolutely tailor-made to smell that thing, and I really have no idea why.
Okay. And in Ireland, where I live, they are even faster because it's always rains. So It's even faster.
You always smell it.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
that's
then you
no,
become accustomed to that.
it's fine. I'm joking, but I didn't know that. I did realize that you could, smell it a lot better than other stuff. For example, I don't know, have you ever liked when you go to take the petrol in your car? Do you like the smell of the petrol? I kind of did, but I know people who don't like it.
Well, I did like it in the past, but this is an interesting memory experiment because like recently I remember that I had an electric motorcycle for a while, let's say for a month, because I went to China and there they are very popular. And it was like the idea of going on a motorcycle without noise and without smell, after a while, made me realize how dirty, like, I don't know how to explain how dirty our regular life of today is, you know?
But to
Maybe
be
in
fair,
20
the
years.
smell, the smell I can get, it's pollution and whatever. The noise for maybe a scooter is fine, but there is a problem with electrical cars and noise because a Tesla doesn't make any noise. So if you are used to even crossing street to use your ears to make judgment on how and when to drive, because even subconsciously you just use your ears. So if a car doesn't make any noise, it's a problem.
Yeah, but that's also a memory problem because let's say the brains of the younger people, they will be used to use a sight much more than noise because they will be wired differently, you know? They will have stored memory in a
So
different
like they
way,
were
let's say.
like they were used to having an iPhone and never go door to door to play with their friends like we used to, go to the house, ring the phone, go to the house, open the door, get outside to play. Nowadays they just have the phone and whatever and don't even know there is another way of life. That's what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And,
Talking about memory, why is it that everything in the past looks so beautiful? Like,
because we
why?
discard the bad ones. We discard the bad things or feelings or point of views of that time, and we idolize that moment, just taking the good ones, I guess.
Yeah, that's the point, you know, like our brain obviously doesn't have our brain, it's I don't think it's very heavy. I think it's for sure below 2 kilograms. I really don't know it, honestly don't know it. But I mean, if we go back to the theoretical limit, and yeah, our brain is not nearly close to the theoretical limit, because the theoretical limit, not even DNA, which is the stuff that has the most memory we know. So our neurons are way. I mean, we are very limited in our capacity to store data. So our brain basically erase the bad parts. Like it selectively, like it's like you have the need to erase something because you don't have the power to store everything, and you select to erase the things you don't like, kind of,
So you
sort of.
fill the boxes with just positive things as opposed to negative ones. If we want to
Yeah,
stick with the Sherlock Holmes, idea.
yeah. I mean, he was a fictional character. Like most of us devote a lot of our memory storage to bullshit, unfortunately. Uh, I mean, I think all of us do, you know, like there are just some things that are easy to stick to your mind, and others that would be useful, like
Well, you
and
can
they
ask me
tend to go
anything
away.
about. You can ask me anything about a lot of movies. You can ask me anything about Futurama. You can ask me anything about a lot of, I don't know, manga or anime stuff, and then you ask me, to do some complex algebra, and it takes me a while. Whereas if you ask me what Peter Griffin said in episode 2 of season 1, I can
Yeah.
maybe tell you right off the bat. So yes,
And that's also why we need to enhance our memory. I mean, since the caveman, I mean, going back to the idea of the caveman, I don't remember exactly, like you think that they did to count the animal. For me, not necessarily. It was so pragmatic. Like maybe they really remember the scene, you know, like they were very emotionally connected with this hunt, the hunting of the animals, and they want to just put it down to be able to think back, you know. They said, wow, I had this life experience, like, you know, like the time of my life. I want to be able to look at it even tomorrow, you know, when I forget many aspects, many details. So probably like in the movement of the animal, in the movement of the people, there was something that they felt really emotionally connected, and they want to capture it, you know. They want to store that memory, because we know that our brain is pretty quick to forget a large number of things, you know, because we have limited space. It's all of that.
Actually, we are very very good at reconstructing things by clues. As in, let's say you have X amount of tasks to do in a day, and you put in your notes for the day on your phone, because otherwise you wouldn't remember, I don't know, a single word for task. I don't know, like eggs.
Yeah.
You know, eggs for the shopping part, the grocery list. Y for this, blah blah blah, and whatever. We are very good at recollecting and reconstructing from clues what we need to do, because we are able, I guess, to make a lot of things that are not presently needed in the background, but still available, which is, I guess, why I have so many books. I have a lot of books in my library that I never use, but I have them because if I ever had to use them, I can just basically remember a word and then you remember the book, and then from there you go to whatever part of the book, and then you reconstruct whatever you need, which, by the way, is another way. It's coded somehow in algorithms and how you do, I don't know, searching and sorting and whatever. One of the ways
it's a compression. It's a natural form of compression of data.
Even the stupidest thing ever. How do you search in your yellow pages? Okay, we don't have a yellow pages anymore. We have the internet or whatever. But do you remember how you looked for people numbers in yellow pages?
I don't remember. No, I forgot.
You would have the book in your hand, and the book was divided by letters from A to Z. So your first step was, okay, the surname is Rossi, so you go to number R. So you just basically discarded 90% of the informations.
Yeah. No, it's,
you go and search for the name. So that's how
it's
reconstruct things.
It's a primitive version of a database, let's say. A very primitive.
And the way you look, it could be a binary search or something similar. But what I wanted to say was, you had an amount of information, and you used a simple keyword to reduce the information needed and to start constructing the information you were looking for.
Yeah, it's like a markup language, basically. It's the principle of the markup language, and I think, I mean, I'm not an expert in that, but I think it's also the principle on many compressed formats, like many formats that are compressed.
That way is okay. Huffman, which is kind of the most famous one, work like this. You tokenize your text or whatever piece of information you have. You look for patterns. Let's say the word bird is 1. The word dog is 2. You then substitute the number in the information, and then you basically have a way to summarize how many information and the position of those informations in the registration that you're looking for. So basically what you get back is a data set that contains the words that you have, the frequency and the location, but in a way that is much more dense, and it works better the more repetition you have, such as in a text file, it works very well. In a JPEG image, it doesn't work really well because you have a huge amount of delta and a big amount of information, whereas on a text file, you can have gigabytes of text, But at the end of the day, even in the English language, you could basically already know the 20% of the most used words, such as and, between, oh, the, whatever. So text is easy to compress, images are not. That's why you can get tons and tons of megabytes of text or document in some kilobytes, but a JPEG image, it's not really that bad, but it's not really that good either.
But it could be. This is very interesting because the way we remember image, it's a very compressed form. Like, I give you an example. If you have an artificial neural network and you want to store an image of gray cat, you can simply ask the neural network to produce an image of a gray cat. So it's like, he will always produce a gray cat. It doesn't work today because what they produce is usually creepy. Like, when you ask them to produce something, they always get the number of eyes wrong, and
they get the shape right, but the details are not. Okay, I see.
Yeah. There is something very disturbing about the image that they produce.
6 legs or something.
Yeah. You get the idea. But in the future, we might store image in a more semantic way if you pass the term, let's say. But before we conclude, there is still a couple of gigs that I would really like to talk about. And the first one is how much will weight all the data that we have in the world if we store it in a ideal theoretical limit storage. I did the math, so I imagine, of course, this number is difficult to find, but I imagine that we have 10 zettabytes. So it's like, no, we have 20 zettabytes. So 20 times 10 to the 21 bytes of data in the whole world. And this is quite arbitrary because I read numbers from 18 to 150. So it's like, it can change a lot, let's say. Also because most of it is made in the last 2 years, as everybody knows, every year. So that much, if we put it to the theoretical limit of density of storage that we can have, it would be 100 kilograms. So it's like in 100 kilogram of perfect storage, you could put all the data in the world. And all the data in the world, it's like, I cannot even imagine how much redundant and how much inefficient that is, like, so like, yeah, the future holds great, let's say, great improvement potential for what concerns memory, both human, like human enhanced, and also from the point of view of the whole world, let's say.
And also, I have another question that's more philosophical or practical, whatever. Let's assume that you live forever. Would you like to remember everything of your life if you live forever, or would you like to be able to forget stuff?
I think it's not a choice. I think you honestly don't have the possibility to remember everything, because otherwise you should add the kilograms upon kilograms to your brain at some point, So yeah, I think you cannot, like, if you are defined by the information that creates you, you cannot live forever, because the longer you live, the more you need to compress and waste memories, so that like it becomes more sparse. Like,
what you're saying is we are gonna see sometimes in the future the death of the Queen of England and of Keith Richards. You're saying, because they're not gonna live forever. That's what I'm not. Okay, that was a bad joke, but yeah, I see.
Long live
compression. There is a
long live the Queen.
Yeah.
Long live the Queen. But yeah, I think that her memory right now it's not so efficient, probably.
but her hats are very good.
Her hats are always perfect. So it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you very much.
We wish you a happy week.
And to see you next week with a new random access memory. Stay frosty and safe.